One of my favorite CSS 3.0 techniques is rounded corners. It is really a lot of fun because it takes something that's really flat and angular. Everything we've been working on is those divs that are empty, the paragraph tags and links. Everything has a really hard edge to it. And with a little bit of the drop shadow that we added before, we're really looking to round and sort of soften up a lot of these pages. Sometimes I'll do things that are very subtle, sometimes I'll do things that are very harsh, but round corners gives me that extra little bit of softness onto certain elements. It's really exciting. Prior to this, if I wanted to add round corners, I'd actually have to cut out a little graphic, paste it in the corner, and then use it as a background image, and then sort of put multiple background images. It was really annoying, but now we have this amazing technique that you notice I'm really excited about, that really gives us that edge because it's, again, all being created from the browser. Again, if we're looking at what we used before, we'll use the drop shadow, div, and I'll append onto that one. Again, we're always layering above and above and above, adding more and more things onto this wonderful file. And you notice that nothing has happened on our HTML. We still have added a drop shadow. We're going to add rounded corners, and it's really, really simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some space. I'm going to go back to that reference library that I was using. And of course, when I look at what I'm going to copy over, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on right there. And one of the things that I really want to be careful with is not go too crazy with these techniques. You notice it says, hey, there's an ability to change the lines of the border radius. There's an ability to change the corners. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do a solid line just for right now? And of course, it keeps it, these multiple lines. And of course, if we zoom in a little bit more, we're going to notice that it says, oh, by the way, you should do this for Mozilla. You should do this for WebKit. You should do this for regular borders. But the standard basic code, prior only using it in one browser, is really simple. Meaning, here's the border. Here's the border radius. So why don't we start with the simple code first, and then we'll layer on top. So I'm going to add a border radius of, I don't know, how about 15? You notice I had an error because I was missing a semicolon, so let's save this. Let's come back to our page and reload it. And you now notice these beautiful corners just popped in out of nowhere. You might not always use big corners like that. It looks like a shipping label. But why don't we soften it up a little bit more? I'm going to use 5 pixels. I'm going to use, there you go. It's starting to get softened up. If I really, really wanted to do something really nice, maybe I go back to my border. I do 1 pix solid, maybe 666. Save this, add a new line, reload, and now it's starting to look, maybe I might even go a little bit softer. Let's use a nice lighter gray. And again, it kind of blends into the background. And now you notice that I'm layering techniques. Really, really simple to use. If you really wanted to get crazy, we can actually see what happens when we type in 50. Wow, now I can start making shapes. If you think about it, if I actually change the width, I'll close our inspector, can't I start making shapes with CSS? And it's yes. So this is really where I'm starting to get really excited now, because now I can start possibly drawing things other than rectangles and squares. So this is one of the really most exciting things about using this. And the best thing of all of these techniques, I go back to my HTML. It's really simple. Any basic screen reader for accessibility can go through this. Anyone, as long as you tag your IDs, can really change the visual look and feel of the page. If you notice, I haven't done any coding on the HTML other than adding the IDs. Now let's take this even further. Now let's actually go back to that reference library here. And what I'm going to do is say, all right, this is set to 5 pixels. One of the things I love about these is that I can just change the width to something else. This is, my width. Great. I can actually set this to be a little larger, and it changes it. So I can do that here. I could actually, you notice I can start playing with. That's what I love about these pages. It gives me an ability to do things in real time. So what if I wanted to take one of these corners and do a really fancy box like that, where I've got one corner radius and another corner radius working on. That really changes the look and feel of the site if you think about it, where I'm actually creating something that's asymmetrical. So why don't I copy this code, and again, maybe we'll actually reduce the radius. We'll copy the code. We'll drop it into our CSS, and then what we'll do is we'll actually sort of go through line by line and tell us what's actually going on. And again, the basic is just a standard border dash radius. If I add in 50 pixels, that means it's 50 pixels around all corners. The border is your standard border that we love using. I'm going to copy the new code, and wow, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines. So I've just, in order for me to change the corner radiuses, I've got to do it 4 times, and I've got to do it against every browser I want to work in. Again, it's a great thing. If I really want every browser to see it, then I have to start thinking about that cross-browser compatibility. You're going to notice it's a trend in this section, in the previous next sections, where I really want to be able to make sure that it looks good everywhere else. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to my page template. I'm going to reload, and doesn't that look pretty cool? Well, in order for us to know that what it actually looks everywhere else, I'm going to open up Firefox, and I'm going to copy my paste over there. Of course, it's pretty small because I'm zoomed out, and you notice that it starts looking really close. So good job, it works on Mozilla. Let's look at Safari. I know that it's actually going to work here because, of course, it's based on the same WebKit engine. So this is really cool. I now have multiple browsers where I've got a really 2 fancy effects, my asymmetrical rounded corners, my drop shadows, that are all fluid and dynamic, that could actually be rendered by the browser, which is really, really exciting.